My name's Jordan. I'm 34, live in Austin, and about 5 years ago, I quietly became a millionaire. I say quietly because I learned the hard way what happens when certain people in your life start seeing dollar signs instead of you. I run a software startup that got acquired by a bigger company during the height of the tech boom. It wasn't flashy. No news articles. No overnight fame. Just a healthy wire transfer, a new LLC to keep things clean, and me sitting alone in my apartment, staring at a bank balance I never thought I'd see. I never posted about it. Never bought a Lambo. I stayed in my modest two-bedroom and wore the same hoodies. Why? Because I already knew how my parents would react. You see, my mom and dad have always treated me like I was the family disappointment. I was the creative one, which in their words basically meant lazy. My older brother, Nathan, went into finance. My sister, Erica, married a doctor. And I coded in my room, slept odd hours, and drank too much coffee. My mom used to joke that I'd either end up building the next Google or working at a gas station. No in between. Dad was harsher, less passive, more blunt. Get your head out of the clouds, he'd say. You're not special. Nobody cares about your apps. I learned to stop trying to impress them. For years, I kept my wins to myself, the freelance jobs, the startup grants, the app launches. I never even told them when I quit my job to go full-time. Just said I was between roles. They didn't ask questions. They were too busy fawning over Nathan's quarterly bonuses or Erica's new kitchen remodel. I was background noise at best. Still, I'm not heartless. And despite everything, I thought, maybe, just maybe, if I gave them something tangible, something they couldn't ignore or twist into another dig at me, they might actually see me, appreciate me. I had this idea, a gift, a real one. There's this beautiful ranch-style house just outside San Antonio. Wide porch, oak trees in the backyard, open concept everything. $1.07 million. Paid in full. The plan was to surprise them. I'd fold the deed inside a gift envelope, invite them to a nice dinner, and finally say, "This is yours." I don't know what I was expecting. Gratitude? Tears? Maybe an apology? Something close to, "We were wrong about you, Jordan. You did it." Instead, I got what I always got. I invited them to dinner at a quiet Italian place near Zilker. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. The kind of place where the owner still brings bread out himself and remembers your name. I booked it a week in advance and asked for the booth near the fireplace. When I texted my parents, I kept it vague. Would love to catch up. Got something to share. I figured that'd be enough. They were 18 minutes late. No apology. My mom was scrolling through her phone as she walked in, barely looking up. Dad was already annoyed. "This better not be another one of your silly ideas," he muttered before even sitting down. I hadn't said a word yet. Just smiled and stood to greet them. I should have known. They didn't order food. Said they weren't hungry. My mom looked around like she was bored. My dad asked if the AC was broken. I tried to steer things back. "I actually wanted to talk about something important," I said, sliding the envelope halfway out of my jacket. My dad scoffed. "Is this about that little video game thing again?" he said. "Because your uncle tried something like that and ended up bankrupt." My mom chimed in without missing a beat. "We don't have time for your little projects, Jordan. Your brother's flying in next week. We actually have real things to deal with." I just sat there, staring at them. The envelope was still in my hand, still unopened. Something inside me shifted in that moment. Not anger, not sadness, just acceptance. That quiet, sharp clarity you get when you realize a door you've been trying to walk through has been locked the whole time, and maybe it's time to stop knocking. I gently folded the deed back into the envelope, slipped it into my inner pocket, and stood up. "Forget it," I said softly. "I was going to buy you a $1 million home. But if I'm just some silly distraction, then I'll keep it for myself." My mom blinked. "What are you talking about?" But I didn't answer. I left a 50 on the table and walked out, the door jingling behind me like punctuation. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've had 17 missed calls, 9 texts, 3 voicemails, and an actual handwritten letter. My dad said I overreacted. My mom said they were caught off guard and thought I was joking. Apparently, the idea of me doing anything that grand just didn't seem plausible to them. My sister sent a group text saying, "I think you owe them an explanation." An explanation? I haven't replied to any of them. But this morning, I got a new message, a selfie from my mom in her old house's backyard, with a sad face emoji and the caption, "We'd love to see that ranch home." Just for fun. And now I'm trying to decide what to do. Because the house still sits empty. Sunlight pouring through the wide glass windows. Quiet. Peaceful. Waiting. I didn't respond right away. I reread that message maybe 10 times. Just for fun. It echoed in my head like a bad joke. It wasn't just the words, it was the smile and the selfie. Like this was all one big game. Like I was still the same teenage Jordan begging for a seat at the adult table, desperate for a pat on the back. That smirk told me everything I needed to know. They didn't understand what they did. Not even close. I sat at the edge of the bed, the morning sun cutting sharp through the blinds. The deed sat on my nightstand where I'd left it. I hadn't looked at it since that dinner. I picked it up again and turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of it, not just the paper, but the years behind it. Years of being brushed off, talked over, quietly dismissed like I didn't quite measure up. And here I was, holding proof that I did. That day, I drove out to the house. Not with the intent of giving it to them, just to remind myself what it meant. I hadn't been back since closing. It was still staged from the realtor tour, plush beige couches, perfectly fluffed pillows, a fake bowl of lemons on the kitchen island. It smelled like possibility. Or maybe it was just the faint scent of new wood and tile. I walked through each room slowly. The master bedroom had high ceilings and a view of the oak trees in the back. The guest rooms were cozy, clean. I sat on the back porch for a while with a cup of coffee and listened to the wind move through the trees. No city noise. No car alarms. Just silence. And that's when I decided. This house wasn't for them. It never was. Not really. It was for the version of me that used to dream of finally being enough. Later that night, I got a call, not a text. A full-blown phone call. From my dad. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Jordan, listen. Your mother and I were surprised. We didn't mean to shut you down like that. You caught us off guard. Maybe we weren't fair. We want to talk. Let's meet again. Just the three of us. We'll listen this time. I could hear the forced calm in his voice. That clipped politeness. My dad didn't do apologies. Not really. What he did was damage control. And I could tell this was exactly that. Still, a part of me hesitated. I wasn't cold. I didn't want to live my life carrying around bitterness like a trophy. But I also wasn't stupid. I knew the difference between regret and remorse. Regret is when things don't go your way. Remorse is when you truly understand why. I needed to know which one it was. So I said yes. I told them I'd meet them again. One more dinner. Same place. No surprises. When I walked into the restaurant, they were already seated this time, early, in fact. My mom looked different. A little more put together, like she was trying. My dad stood when I approached the table, something he never did. I nodded, slid into the booth, and waited. They didn't start with an apology. Not right away. Instead, my mom smiled too wide and said, "We've been looking at ranch homes online. That one outside San Antonio looks beautiful. You have such an eye, Jordan." I leaned back. "That's interesting," I said slowly. "You mean the one I was going to give you?" My dad cleared his throat. "Yes, that one. We were thinking maybe we were too quick to judge last time. Your mother was just tired, and I wasn't really listening. But if you're serious about this, we want to understand." "Do you?" I asked. He blinked. "Of course." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila folder. I slid it across the table. My mom grabbed it, probably thinking it was the deed. But when she opened it, all she found inside were 10 pages of itemized receipts. Phone plans, mortgage payments, car repairs, utility bills, flights I paid for, hotel stays, groceries, all things I'd covered for them over the last 4 years. Quietly, without a word. Each line had a date, amount, and category. "What's this?" my mom asked, voice rising slightly. "That," I said, "is everything I've paid for while being treated like an afterthought. Like a joke. Like your disappointing son who's only good when you need something." My dad was frowning now. My mom looked confused. "We never asked for all this," she said weakly. "No," I replied, "you never asked. You just expected." The air at the table went still. Neither of them said a word. "I came here last time with the deed to $1 million house. I was going to hand it to you. No strings attached. Because despite everything, I still wanted to do something for you. Something big. Something that would make you proud of me." I paused. My voice had started to tremble, and I hated that. I forced it steady. "But when I sat down, the first thing out of your mouth was a reminder that you still don't take me seriously. That everything I do is a joke to you. Even now, especially now, all you can think about is what you might still get out of this." My mom opened her mouth, probably to say something defensive. But my dad stopped her. He looked me in the eye. And for the first time in, maybe ever, he looked uncertain. Not smug. Not dismissive. Just quiet. I stood up. The house is mine now, I said. I've decided to keep it. Maybe move in, maybe not. But you won't be seeing it. You won't be getting it. I gave you a chance to see me. Really see me. And you didn't want it. My mom's voice was barely a whisper. Jordan, please. I shook my head. You had years. And then I walked out. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages again. Some angry, some sad, some pretending none of this had ever happened. But I didn't reply. I didn't block them either. I just let the silence do the talking. The texts kept coming. A barrage of mixed emotions, my mom swinging between guilt-laced apologies and guilt-tripping nostalgia, and my dad sending carefully worded messages that almost read like corporate HR emails. One of them said, "We just want the family to be close again." Another said, "You know we've always loved you, right?" I stared at that one for a long time. Because the truth is, I didn't know. Not really. Not in a way that felt unconditional. Love, in our house, always had performance metrics. Good grades. A clean room. A respectable career. There wasn't much room for softness or messiness or figuring things out. Especially not for someone like me, the kid who liked to tinker with old computers instead of throwing footballs in the yard. The kid who asked too many questions and didn't know when to shut up at the dinner table. I wasn't defiant, just different. And in our family, different always came with a price. I thought ignoring them would get easier over time, but it didn't. I kept checking my phone like I was waiting for something, not an apology, exactly, but maybe a moment of clarity from their side. Something real. Something that said, "We finally see you." But it never came. Then Erica called. I hadn't expected her to get involved. She was always the golden child, clean-cut, smiling in every holiday card, hosting perfect brunches with frittatas and Pinterest-style name tags. She called me once every other month, mostly out of obligation. This time, though, she called 3 times in a row. When I finally picked up, I didn't say anything. I just let her speak. "Jordan," she said, her voice carefully measured, "I know you're upset, but you're punishing them." I almost laughed. Punishing them? That word rang in my ears. "You do realize they humiliated me, right?" I said. At a dinner, I planned to give them a literal mansion. All they had to do was listen for 5 minutes. "I know," she said quickly, "I get it. I do. But they're just old school. They don't always say the right thing. But what?" I cut in. "They meant well? They didn't mean it like that?" "Erica." I sat down with something life-changing for them, and they shut me down before I could speak. "You call that old school?" "I call that willful ignorance." There was a pause. "They were shocked," she said finally. "It's not that they don't love you, Jordan. It's that they never expected this from you." "Exactly," I said, and I didn't even try to hide the hurt in my voice. "They never expected anything from me. At least nothing good." Another pause. And then, more quietly, "They're scared now. I think they're realizing how badly they messed up." I didn't answer, because I didn't know what to say. She kept talking. "Just come over for dinner next week. No expectations. No drama. Just be in the room. Let them try. Let them try." That phrase sat with me for the rest of the day. What did trying look like now? A forced apology over meatloaf? A clumsy toast acknowledging my existence as a functioning adult? I didn't know. But for some reason, I said yes. Not because I was ready to forgive, but because I wanted to see if they were even capable of trying. The following Thursday, I drove back to my parents' place. I hadn't been there in almost a year. Same beige siding. Same garden gnomes by the porch. Same feeling in my stomach, that weird, hollow unease that settled in my gut every time I turned into that driveway. It was like walking into a time capsule of every insecurity I'd ever carried. My mom opened the door before I knocked. She looked nervous. Hair done, makeup on, apron tied neatly around her waist. I noticed her hands were fidgeting, something I'd never seen her do. "Hi, honey," she said, voice too chipper. "Come in. Your dad's just finishing the salad." I stepped inside. The house smelled like garlic bread and anxiety. The table was set for 4. Erica was there too, probably acting as peacekeeper. I glanced around the room and caught sight of the photos on the mantle: Nathan's graduation, Erica's wedding, my parents' anniversary. No photo of me. Still, even after all this, we sat. Small talk filled the air, tight, uncomfortable, shallow. They asked about my company. I gave vague answers. My dad mentioned a documentary he saw on tech billionaires, trying to sound informed. My mom said she'd started learning about crypto, which, frankly, was terrifying. Then, halfway through the meal, my dad put down his fork and cleared his throat. "Jordan," he said, "we owe you an apology." The table went still. Even Erica stopped chewing. My mom looked like she wanted to say something, but my dad kept going. "I think, for a long time, we just didn't know what to make of you. You were different, and we thought we were helping by pushing you toward what we knew. But we didn't listen. We didn't see you. And when you tried to show us what you built, we brushed you off again." He looked at me, not past me, not through me, at me. "I'm sorry." My mom's voice was soft. "We both are." For a moment, I just sat there. No words, no expressions, just this strange, heavy pause. Then I reached into my jacket, not for the deed, but for a simple, white envelope. Their eyes followed it like it was the Holy Grail. Inside was a card. Nothing fancy, no big announcement, just a handwritten note that read, "This was your shot." And below that, I kept the house. I didn't wait to see their reaction. I stood up and left the room in stunned silence. As I walked out of their house for the last time, I didn't slam the door. I didn't say anything cruel or dramatic. I just stepped into the cool night air, got into my car, and drove away with a strange sense of calm. No victory lap, no fireworks, just peace. And that was new. That was the part one hadn't expected, the silence in my chest where there used to be noise. Growing up, I always wanted their approval, craved it. Every little success, I'd imagine how I'd present it to them. A certificate, a news article, a tech award. I had this fantasy that if I just stacked enough accomplishments high enough, they'd finally look over the wall and say, "Hey, that's our son." But that night, watching my dad stumble through a too-late apology, watching my mom tear up only after realizing the gift was gone, I knew the truth. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could give them. And once it became clear I wasn't going to hand it over wrapped in a bow, they panicked. They weren't sorry because they'd hurt me. They were sorry because I'd finally stopped bending. A few days later, I finally moved into the house. Not just on paper, not just in thought. I made it real. I canceled the lease on my Austin apartment, hired movers, and bought a truckload of furniture that didn't remind me of secondhand hand-me-downs or my college futon. Every room was a fresh start. I even let myself indulge a little, a state-of-the-art coffee machine, a custom-built desk, smart lighting that actually worked on the first try. The master bedroom had the kind of mattress that made me feel like royalty. I slept better in that house than I had in a decade. And for the first time, I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. It's not that they gave up right away. My mom left a voicemail every morning for 2 weeks. My dad emailed me a 3-paragraph essay that sounded more like something he'd send to a disappointed investor than to his own son. Erica texted me variations of "they're trying," "Jordan," "really," over and over. But I'd done my part. I listened. I waited. I gave them a chance to show up for me, not just with words, but with understanding. And they failed. That was their choice. So I made mine. Eventually, the messages slowed, dried up, and then, one day, they just stopped. No more "can we talk?" No more guilt. No more attempts to frame me as the one who overreacted. The silence, once deafening, started to feel like peace. It's been over a year now, and in that time, I've started to rebuild something that matters more than any relationship based on guilt or performance: my own foundation. The house became more than just a physical space. It became a promise I made to myself that I would no longer beg people to value me, that I wouldn't shrink myself to fit their vision of who I should be. I turned one of the guest rooms into a creative studio, a space just for me. No deadlines, no bosses, just whiteboards full of ideas, test builds of projects I've always wanted to explore. I launched a new startup 3 months ago, something focused on accessible tech education, and it's already gaining traction. I brought on a small, scrappy team of people who believe in the mission. Every time we hit a milestone, I smile to myself. Not because someone else is proud of me, but because I am. And I'm finally starting to build friendships that aren't transactional. Real ones. I've met people through mutual networks and passion projects, people who value curiosity, creativity, and growth. People who don't raise an eyebrow when I say I've taken the road less traveled, but instead lean in and say, "Tell me more." It's been slow, sure. Healing always is. But it's been real. One night, late last fall, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A real letter from my dad. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Neat, angled, the way he always wrote checks. It wasn't long, just a single page. "Jordan, I've read and reread that note you left us. The one that said, 'This was your shot.' At first, I thought you were being cruel, that you were trying to punish us. but I've had time to think. And I realized something I didn't want to admit. You gave us far more chances than we ever gave you. We were wrong, flat out wrong, about your career, your talent, your value. And worst of all, we were wrong about your heart. You gave us everything you could, and we looked away. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't expect a response. But I wanted you to know that we see it now. We see you. I hope you're doing well, Dad. I folded the letter slowly and placed it in the drawer of my desk. I didn't cry. I didn't smile, either. I just sat there for a moment and let it land. Because here's the thing, it wasn't about the house. Not really. It wasn't even about the money. It was about being seen, being respected, being known. And no apology, not even a sincere one, could rewrite the years of being made to feel like a placeholder. Like the punchline of a family joke I never got to be in on. It was too late to rebuild that bridge. Not out of spite, but because I'd already crossed the river and built something better on the other side. Last week, I hosted a housewarming dinner. Just a few close friends, the ones who supported me when no one else was looking. The people who've seen me at my worst and never once made me feel like I had to perform. We grilled on the back deck, lit a fire pit under the stars, and laughed until our ribs hurt. At one point, my friend Taylor asked, "Hey, Jordan, you ever think about inviting your parents out here?" I paused for a second. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wanted to be sure it was the right one. "No," I said. "This place was a gift. And I'm finally learning how to stop giving things to people who never bothered to unwrap me." She just nodded. "Good," she said. "That's good." And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed it.